This week I watched a video in which a prominent tech YouTuber made a mistake regarding an electric car and how to recharge it. If he is able to make that mistake, then other people will too, so the issue needs a bit of explanation. So let me explain the limitations of the Tesla supercharging network, which are... Hello everyone, I'm Andrew. Thanks for joining me today on the electric transition. Today I want to briefly explain the limitations of the Tesla supercharging network and how they might affect your charging experience. These issues don't currently affect Tesla vehicles very much, although that is changing a bit. However, they do impact people who use the Tesla supercharging network with non-Teslas, with how much it affects you depending on the car. The Tesla supercharger network was originally built for charging Teslas and could only be used for that purpose. Nowadays things have changed and a number of their sites are open to any car, but that initial focus on Teslas has led to some limitations to their flexibility. However, there are some significant benefits to using superchargers where you are able. Firstly, the supercharger network forms a big part of the DC fast charging infrastructure in countries in which they exist. Because Tesla started their installations earlier than most other operators and rolled them out very fast, there are a lot of locations. What's more, they are extremely reliable, which is a benefit for any user, no matter what car they want to charge. Having said that, other networks are closing the gap in that regard. But finally, where they are open to other vehicles, they are usually pretty keenly priced compared to others, so there can be a lot of money to be saved by using them when you need a rapid charge. But we have to tackle those limitations. Firstly, on older version 2 and version 3 sites, the ones with these dispensers with the hole in the middle within which the cable resides, the cables are quite short. Because there is no standardisation to where the charge port is on a car, that can make getting the connector plugged in quite hard on a number of cars. Try yours and see if it's possible before you have to top up. Forewarned is forearmed. Secondly, the usability of superchargers is not always what you might want. On sites with version 4 dispensers, these ones with the solid bodies and longer cables, you might find a contactless card reader on each dispenser. However, at some sites here in the UK, there is a shared card reader, one for the whole site, which is a bit more of a faff to use. The other way to start a supercharger is with an app, but not any app. In the United States, you can often use your car's app to do it, and the Tesla app works if you register. But you cannot do so with a roaming app, something like the ZapMap app or the Octopus Electroverse app, both of which are commonplace here in the UK. However, the biggest limitation for the future is that superchargers are not fully compatible with the latest generation of cars. Let me explain. In an electric car, there are two batteries. The battery under the bonnet, usually a consumable that needs changing every 4 years or so, is a low voltage affair. That normally runs the usual car stuff, things like the lights, the wipers, the audio system, seat mirror and window adjustments, and the computers in the car. The second battery lives under the car and is used to drive that car, as well as work the heating system. This is what we call the high voltage battery, but that's a fairly vague term. For most cars, including all early ones and all small ones to date, this battery outputs about 400 volts. That's entirely standard. However, in pursuit of faster charging, manufacturers have sought to reduce heating from energy losses and have started to use a higher voltage system, typically about 800 volts. Due to a quirk of the physics, doubling the battery's voltage reduces heating losses by 3/4. As heat is one of the limiting factors in charging speed, that's a big advantage. But herein lies the problem. Most modern DC rapid chargers can output anything up to 1000 volts, so can natively charge any 400 or 800 volt car, but Tesla superchargers cannot. Their limit is only about 475 volts. That's usually not the end of the world. Most 800 volt cars are built to be able to charge at about 400 volts in anticipation of chargers that cannot output what they natively need. Therefore, these newer cars usually can charge at a supercharger. However, they cannot do so at the normal charging speed for that car, so they do so significantly slower than on a charger that outputs their native voltage. There are two implications for people who have or are looking to buy one of these latest generation 800 volt cars. First, you should check the cable length and the speed of charging before you plan to use a supercharger. Knowing how easy it is and how long it might take should be a part of your planning. Secondly, if you are buying a car second-hand, if you want to use superchargers in the future, then you should check it works as part of the test drive. 800 volt cars usually have a dedicated hardware to be able to do this trick, and that's a bit of hardware you want to check works. They have been known to fail occasionally and would be expensive to replace. DC rapid charging is normally pretty straightforward in terms of what's in a car and does not require lots of complex, expensive high-power electronics in that car. But this one ability does use expensive kit, so test if it works before buying. If it isn't, then at the very least, use that knowledge to negotiate the price you pay for the car, or perhaps even better, walk away. So the only thing remaining is how you can know if a car you are looking at is 400 volt or 800 volt. Well, firstly, I'm including a list at the end of the video. Hang around for that if you want. But alternatively, you can look it up. EV Database contains this information for every car sold to date in the European Union. Go to ev-database.org, find your car, and then look at the details. In the battery section is an entry called Architecture, which should say either 400V or 800V, with V standing for volts. Here's the entry for my Renault Zoe, a 400 volt car. For completeness, I should say that Tesla do have a fix for this. The very latest generation of supercharger cabinets can output 1000 volts in combination with version 4 dispensers. However, Tesla has never prioritised upgrading older hardware. They do add new stalls to existing sites, and they of course add many more sites as fast as they possibly can. But they have so many existing superchargers in the ground that upgrading them all would be an enormous undertaking. We should assume that a network-wide upgrade program is not happening. Oh, and in case you wanted to know, that tech YouTuber I mentioned at the very start of the video was Marques Brownlee. On his brilliantly named autofocus channel, he reviewed the Hyundai Ioniq 5 XRT, a trim made for the North American market. In the review, he mentioned that it charged slowly on a Tesla supercharger despite its native NACS port. Well, hopefully we now all appreciate why that could have been the case. It's understandable that on seeing a NACS port in America, you might head to a supercharger. After all, NACS is the connector that Tesla created. However, the Ioniq 5 is an 800 volt car, irrespective of the variant. All superchargers installed to date, besides a single site in Redwood City, California, cannot output the 800 volts that car wants. As a result, to charge, the car was using its trick of boosting the incoming voltage, which works but limits its charging speed. In summary, the Tesla supercharger network has some limitations. It is a great network in that it is widely available, reliable, and usually pretty cheap. However, not all of their sites are open to non-Tesla users. Use an app to find that out, either Tesla's app or another public charger app. What's more, on older sites, the cables can be a bit short. Payment without an app is not always super convenient depending on the site, and they cannot natively charge 800 volt cars. 800 volt cars are usually able to work around this limitation, but they do so using a booster or converter, and that might fail. Therefore, be sure to check that capability when buying an 800 volt car, especially when buying second-hand. Thanks very much for joining me today. Your questions and comments on this subject are most welcome in the comments section. I'd really like to hear your experiences in the comments. Have you tried charging at Tesla Superchargers with a non-Tesla car? If so, how did you get on? How did you pay? And did that work as expected? If you've liked this week's video, then it is a big help to me if you click the thumbs up button. And I'd love to have you as a subscriber of the channel if you want to see more from me. Hang on for the current list of 800 volt cars if that's of interest. If you want to see that, it follows next. The following are the 800 volt cars available in or soon after February 2026. The Audi e-tron GT plus the A6, S6 and Q6 e-tron. The BMW iX3 and the new i3 from 2026. The BYD Seal C-Line 7 or Tang. The Chevy Silverado EV. The Genesis GV60 or GV70 and G80 electrified. The GMC Hummer EV and Sierra EV. The Hyundai Ioniq 5, 6 or 9. The Kia EV6 and EV9. The Lotus Elettra and Amea. The Lucid Air and Gravity. The Maserati Gran Turismo Folgore and Gran Cabrio Folgore. Mercedes CLA and GLB. The MG IM5 and IM6. The Polestar 3 and 5. The Porsche Taycan plus the Macan and Cayenne Electric. The Smart No. 5. The Tesla Cybertruck. The Volvo EX60, EX90 and ES90. The Xpeng P7 Plus, G6 and G9 and the Zeekr 7GT and 7X. Those are all 800 volt cars, and whilst they might charge on a Tesla Supercharger, in most cases they will not achieve their peak charging speeds if they do. Finally, note that some Mercedes CLAs in some markets will not charge on 400 volt chargers at all, so be aware of that and be sure you understand if a CLA you buy can or not. Thanks.